Hey guys, Dr. Sabertooth here, and today, to celebrate Sonic's 30th anniversary, I thought I'd go back and look back on Sonic's 20th anniversary game, Sonic Generations. Even though this game isn't my favorite Sonic game of all time, I gotta say, this game is really good, and I have noticed that people seem to be very critical on this game. And sure, this game is really short, with a simple and kind of badly written plot, and I agree with both these complaints to a certain extent, but what some people seem to not know is that short doesn't equal a bad game. But I'll save that tangent for a later video, like in the far off future when I get desperate enough to just start talking about random gaming stuff that isn't Sonic related. Anyways, I want to share why I think that Sonic Generations is an amazing game that I personally have very fond memories of. So, let me set the stage. It all started in 2011 when my brother had got home from his job at one of those local game stores at the mall. I can't remember which one, but that's not really important. He saw that I owned a copy of both Sonic Unleashed and Sonic 06, two games I had played, but not very much of because I was very bad at video games at the time. So he knew I kinda liked Sonic, and seeing this game had recently released, he thought it would be a good game for me to try out. Now, keep in mind, unlike a majority of people who played this game for the first time, I had barely touched a Sonic game before jumping into this. The farthest I got in both Sonic games I had at the time were less than an hour long at most combined. So, needless to say, I was very inexperienced with the franchise at the time of playing this. I jumped into the game, and unlike the other two games I'd played, I was surprised to see it played in 2D. Now keep in mind, other games I had played at this point in my life were either fully 3D games or retro games thanks to the Wii Virtual Console. So the concept of a game on a current system with 3D graphics but 2D gameplay was just mind-boggling to me. And before you ask, no, I didn't get to the 2D segments in Sonic Unleashed. I kept dying at this part right here. So to my 8-year-old self, Sonic was strictly a 3D game. Now moving on from that, I utterly sucked at this game, but I pushed through because I was just having fun running through the stage, and eventually I got through it and got to the first cutscene of the game, and I was just wondering to myself questions like, what's that big purple monster? Why does Sonic look different? And by the second cutscene, it was basically a bunch of, who is this character? Because, like I've been saying throughout this entire video, I was a complete newbie to Sonic, but I did recognize Tails since he was in one of the first few cutscenes to Sonic 06, but I didn't recognize a single one of any of the others. But all their designs just clicked with me, and I wanted to learn more about them. And I continued through the game, and I got to Green Hill Act 2, and I was with a more familiar control style that I had seen in Sonic Unleashed. But after a long while, due to how bad I was at the game, I eventually beat all the stages and got to interact with Amy and Knuckles in the game for the first time. And after each cutscene, you could talk to them, so that's how I actually learned their names. Now, one thing I should bring up for more context is that in first grade, me and my friends would always be playing games at recess, as any kids our age would be doing, and my friend would always want to play Sonic, and by that, he meant we would act out characters, but seeing as I didn't know any of the characters, he would just assign characters for us, and so I was somewhat familiar with the names of the characters, and it was nice to actually see faces to these characters who I'd only ever seen names to, so that's how I kind of became attached to them. And so after doing the little mini-game thing, I finally got to the first boss. And sure, it was pretty easy, even for my 8-year-old self. I beat it after the first few tries, but it was just such a spectacle to look at. And plus, at this point in any sort of Sonic media, I had never really gotten a good look at what Eggman looked like, since I would just kind of glance over the cutscenes from the other two games, and him looking radically different in both, so I had no idea what to expect from him in this game. And so, the simple plot of Eggman being kidnapped by the Time Eater was actually pretty effective for me at the time. It had felt like a genuine mystery to me because I had no prior knowledge, so I wasn't aware of cliches of Eggman harnessing some powerful god and it betraying him, so I was genuinely caught off guard to see stuff like this. And then I got to the Dreamcast era levels, and going from the Genesis levels to these grand cities was just so fascinating to me. And I'll probably never forget the first time ever playing City Escape, even if it's not the iconic SA2 version. And after playing through all the stages through that area, and even going back to the older levels to test my skill with the stuff I have now, I finally got to the boss of this area. I know I've been mentioning this a lot, but Perfect Chaos absolutely blew away my 8-year-old self. I had always seen stuff like Godzilla movies in bits and pieces and was familiar with the concept of giant monsters, and suddenly seeing this giant water dragon in a completely destroyed city just baffled me, and I thought something along the lines of, okay, this has gotta be one of the last bosses. I don't know how it could get bigger than this. Something that caught me off guard about this boss was the music. Now up to this point, almost all of the levels have just been instrumental music, not counting City Escape, but I didn't really pay attention to the lyrics when I was playing through that. But this level had actual lyrics to it, and I was actually kind of focusing on them, and I realized that they fit the situation really well, and it just fit, and I was just in awe at seeing this boss and this hard rock music. This song right here, without a doubt, is what got me into Sonic music. And sure, I now don't consider it on top 10s when thinking of songs that I think are just better to listen to, but I will still always love Open Your Heart for that specific reason. And so, after days and days of practicing and trying and getting even closer every single time, I finally beat Perfect Chaos. And I was just impressed with myself that I finally did it. And that right there was probably one of my best gaming memories I've ever had. But then the game kept going, and I had no idea how to feel. I felt excited that I had more of the game to play, but I felt anxious because I knew whatever was ahead could be even harder than what came before it. And when I saw that the first stage was Crisis City, I got those exact same feelings, because with seeing a level that, compared to the bright, colorful stages, be so dark and dreary, it sort of gave me unease, but I pushed through. And when I finally got through all the stages, and ending with Planet Wisp, which, might I add, is just a gorgeous looking stage, even by today's standards of graphics, I got to the third boss, the Egg Dragoon, which wasn't as grand as Perfect Chaos, but it felt fitting to start with a somewhat simple looking Eggman robot and end with this gargantuan death machine. And the boss definitely took me long to finish, because the Egg Dragoon fight just was not easy for me to beat at the time. And even today, it's still pretty hard. Not because it's actually challenging, but because it's just so tedious and kind of annoying. But at the time, I really liked the fight, despite how hard it was to beat. And with all of the stages cleared, all the bosses beaten, and all of the rivals defeated, I finally had all 7 Chaos Emeralds and was ready to take on the Time Eater. And when that cutscene played, and I got to see not only Eggman was controlling it, but to see 2 Eggmans, or Eggmen, I don't know how you would say that, I was legitimately shocked. But with current standards I have today, especially when it comes to Sonic stories, yeah, this twist is kinda lazy, and I felt like they could have done something more interesting, but screw all that, because this twist actually worked on me, and I think that it's a very simple twist, but it works for somebody who was kind of like in my situation of being relatively new to video game storytelling, and I think this is just a good, simple twist, especially for a younger audience. But after a long time, and I do mean a long time, like I literally dropped the game for a good month because I was so frustrated with the boss, I finally beat the Time Eater, and I was ecstatic that I finally beaten my first ever game. I was even more hyped than the perfect chaos moment, and that legitimately made me jump up and down in excitement. And I was just so excited because I saw the credits, so I knew it was finally done. And as I was staring at the credits, I began to notice the gameplay in the corner wasn't from the game, but from the original games the levels came from. And this got me really excited because I'd never seen gameplay of stuff like the original Genesis games or Sonic Colors, and before then I didn't even know stuff like Sonic Heroes or Sonic Adventure existed. And I even got to see gameplay of the games that I had but didn't play too much of, and those small 30 seconds of gameplay gave me enough motivation to want to continue the games. Or at least it would have been, since around that time my oldest brother sold those games to GameStop because I wasn't playing them, but I later rebought both of them, and it's been almost a decade, so I'm not too mad about it anymore. But eventually, I would continue to explore more into Sonic after beating this game, and I would look up stuff like reviews for games I couldn't immediately get my hands on, like Sonic Heroes, or Shadow the Hedgehog, or even stuff like Black Knight and Secret Rings. And eventually, I would come to own almost every mainline Sonic game, and become the Sonic fan I am today. And sure, without Sonic Unleashed, I wouldn't have even discovered Sonic, and I probably would have been a fan of a more boring series. Like Mario. No offense to Mario fans, but I just think his games are really boring with a very few exceptions. But without Sonic Generations, I probably wouldn't have gotten so invested into the series and want to learn so much because of the fact I played a game full of callbacks to stuff I didn't even get. And for that, I love Sonic Generations. And even though I put other games above it on a list of my favorite Sonic games, I still personally consider this close to my favorite Sonic game of all time. Oh right, I haven't really talked about this game from a critical standpoint, and I've only been talking from personal memories. I don't have much to say in this regard, but I felt like it was necessary since I feel like someone would have asked what I think about the game with pushing my personal attachment aside. I'll just say that's really fun, especially the modern Sonic levels, but it's not to say classic Sonic is bad. I've just always preferred 3D Sonic to 2D Sonic, and obviously modern Sonic appeals more to that personal bias, with only a few 2D segments in between. Plus, I just like the music in modern Sonic stages more. Except for Classic City Escape, that song fucking rocks. Play me out on that shit, future me who's probably editing this video at 4 a.m.